he's catered a lot. Was that your bones
It
cracking?
was my,
Oh. Is that your bones? Like,
not
yeah.
quite there yet.
Okay.
Almost.
That's awesome. Welcome to episode 2 of the Native Edge podcast, brought to you by the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development. I am Chris James, and I'm with my colleague and co-host.
Dosha.
So welcome, everyone, to the Native Edge podcast. Today we, who knows what we're going to talk about, but it could be a myriad of things, but we are focused today a lot on agriculture. And I think as we talk about the purpose of this podcast is to talk about important things that are happening in our communities, but also Native American businesses, tribal facilities, anything. And thought we could talk a lot about agriculture today, something we both know a lot about.
We're going to find out.
Yes, we are. But I will say, I think when people think about business development, and they a lot of times, in our first of all, in our communities, we have a lot of farmland, acres and acres of farmland in certain communities. So there's and I think. At least with us growing up, we always maintain a garden. I think that was a lot in our communities. Folks had either their own personal garden or a community garden or some way. Traditionally, we've always had, agriculture is such a big part of our culture and part of our communities. And it also is such a big part of business development. So growing up, I think you always had the farmer, but did you ever think that the farmer was a small business? And I think some people did, but I don't know. What is your thought as a farmer, as a small business?
Well, they are a small business owner,
Or a large business in some cases.
And a lot of times they will lease land, which tribes have a lot of land to lease for that, venture.
Yeah.
But more importantly, for them to get involved in it like they did traditionally. I know 3 affiliated tribes in North Dakota where I'm enrolled at, we are traditionally farmers and along the Missouri River. So they had bunker crops every year due to the watershed from the Rocky Mountains coming down into the valley of North Dakota, if you think about it, if you're looking at a huge map.
Yeah.
So it has sustained them, of course, for thousands of years. And that is... started the trade, sharing different types of corn with other tribes, because you'll find when you look in different documentaries or read different things that, this corn belonged maybe to the Hopi, but how did it wind up in North Dakota or something like that,
Yeah, and a lot of times I was just informed this week, it could be that a lot of times even it's close to 4 directions of different things. So a lot of cool, a lot of different types of farming and different styles. And I think for even for our younger people looking at opportunities to develop businesses, I think agriculture is an amazing path forward. I think either developing your own farm or using technology to do crops different way. Hydroponics is a huge thing. Have you ever seen one of those urban indoor hydroponic growing area?
Yeah.
Amazing things. There's in Kentucky, and I don't have the name of this facility, but you could probably Google it. But a largest indoor growing facility in Kentucky, but this is huge building of these indoor growing of tomatoes. So, and I think they can, I don't know if they have the capability to do this, but when they're full to scale, I think they have the capability to provide tomatoes all over half the United States.
I believe it.
And they can grow 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the agriculture on the podcast today. We also have an interview that I did with Ted Buelow, who is the a Native American coordinator for United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development. So Ted actually came here into the studio, and we had a great conversation about some of the great work that they have been doing. We also have, we're going to talk about some restaurants. We're going to
Nice.
talk about Chef Sean Sherman.
What we're trying to do is really create a support system to see more healthy Indigenous food operations happening out there, because everything at our restaurant is gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, soy-free, pork-free, and we're really pumping a lot of money directly to Indigenous food producers. So the restaurant is actually a part of our nonprofit because we're using the restaurant as a place for job creation, where there's a whole bunch of Native jobs there. We have over 100 employees in the middle of winter in Minnesota right now today, and about 70% of our staff is identifying as Indigenous, and we're able to really push a lot of Native American foods through that restaurant, because that restaurant's doing about $6 million in sales a year. A huge chunk of that is going directly to Indigenous food producers, because food cost is a big chunk of that money.
So I not only had a chance to meet Sean in Minnesota, I didn't get to go to Awamni, his awesome restaurant. Mainly because they have a 6-month waiting list, by the way, but it's an awesome restaurant he has up there. But I got to spend some time with Sean in Minneapolis. He also has his nonprofit, which he talked about on that clip, and they're intertwined. So he's had this really unique setup. Again, job creation. I mean, that's something we've talked about before.
Yeah,
Workforce
it's the
development.
same thing we've talked about. It's like the job creation, training and development, and then opening like a nonprofit, like you said. And
Yeah.
we've seen that over and over again.
And he really, one thing I like, and we'll also be talking about another restaurant as well. What I like about Sean is the way they source their products. They don't use the sugar. They don't use processed things. They only use ingredients that are all natural. And I swear to you, I went in and Sean and I met with his team. I met with a few people, and it was getting close to lunchtime, or maybe I was going. Maybe I missed lunch because I was on my way to the airport. And so I'm talking to Sean, and Sean's like, "Oh, are you hungry?" And I'm like, "Well, he's like, well, I can fix you something to
He's like,
go."
I'm a chef.
I'm a chef.
I can make you something.
I know, you're hungry. I can make you something. One of his team members made this awesome, he's like, "You like salad?" I'm like, "Who doesn't like salad?"
Mhm.
Made this awesome salad out of bison and fresh products, and I'm chowing down. I take the salad. I'm in the car. I'm chowing it down, and I'm literally thinking this is one of the best meals I've ever had. Definitely one of the best meals I've ever had in the back of a taxi cab. But but it was so good, so tasteful, so flavorful, and I was amazed. So kudos to Sean and all of what he's doing. He has historically spoke at the Reservations Economic Summit. He has also featured some of his food at the Reservation Economic Summit. I can't wait to see to continue to work with Sean Sherman, to work with his nonprofit, and to continue that partnership.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Holistic foods. The buffalo, they're free range, they're healthy, they have sustained the tribes for millennial. Every part of that buffalo was used, by the way. Even the horns were
Yeah.
used as spoons and ladles. Of course, adornment for our traditional regalia. Teepees were made out of buffalo hides. Of course, clothing, moccasins. I mean, the list goes on and on. The sinew for sewing, just everything. The buffalo was so healthy because, one, the protein, of course, and then what they were eating. And it was readily available to them. So it was all fresh, of course. And everybody went to work and everybody had a role. And now he's turned this into his livelihood and feeding others and educating people about eating healthy. Because, of course, we have the highest rate of diabetes in the world. In some tribes, I know NIH has been studying some tribes for so long. on that reason. But we all know it's because of the sugar, the flour, and all those things, and the commodity foods and all the ingredients to keep things, on the shelf longer, of
Yeah.
course. And so our bodies weren't made for those things.
Yep.
And we know this traditionally. And I'm sure it's all in our stories as well. And so everything is just fresh and whole, and the fish, the salmon, like it's just so many things. And then the agencies that are involved, like USDA,
Yeah.
I mean, they're a huge organization, federal organization that you mentioned. I looked it up. They have over 100,000 employees with like $36 billion to spend. So
Wow.
if we're not working with USDA in our tribal communities, we need to be, because they have a lot of programs.
Well, it was great. USDA had such a great presence at the 2024 Reservation Economic Summit, including the secretary spoke, and I think we have a little bit of about him. He's actually on the cover of, we have a magazine called NC Magazine. You can find it on our website. It's the National Center magazine. Sean Sherman is actually on the cover of NC Magazine that came out in March. Decolonizing the plate. So a lot of what's your thoughts about what Alicia Murphy was talking about?
Well, I think it
Economics
just,
decolonization.
yeah, absolutely. It just goes back to like what we just talked about, in that when you create something, like he even mentioned, he's created 100 jobs in his restaurant alone. And so if you can imagine, even small tribes, when they get into farming and utilizing their land masses, or going hydroponics way, because there's so many different technologies out there, it always creates a healthy workforce, and everybody can benefit from that. We talked a little bit about USDA. By the way, I looked at my note. It's $31.68 billion that they have on the table. And not only that, they are in charge of the school lunch program. And I mean, that's really important. What are we feeding the next generations? coming up? How are we educating them about healthy diets and the importance of the holistic lifestyle for everything? Diet, exercise, it just incorporates everything because the plant base is what sustains us, of course, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times I've often said, um, you can't have a healthy business if you're not healthy inside, if you're not healthy, oftentimes healthy around your financials, healthy around your own physical and personal health. I mean, all of that impacts. Oftentimes, it's the trickle down effect. What you do in your life affects your business. Oftentimes, how you run your life is how you run your business. So I think that's something too. And I love the clip from the Murphys, and they are exactly right. At Res 2024, we did have all those agriculture sessions. We featured, they mentioned a bunch on the clip, but we see again how important agriculture is in our communities, how important it is. The Farm Bill has, on an advocacy point, we sometimes talk about advocacy. We have been working very closely with our brother and sister organizations, the Intertribal Agriculture Council. We've been working, with them. They've been, full front on trying to get this Farm Bill past Congress, and it has been a drag. So, making sure that we're supporting each other and supporting their efforts is very important because, as you said, there's billions and billions and billions of dollars at stake. And if we don't have the right mechanisms in play, oftentimes what happens? Our communities get left out, or someone else gets that access that we don't have. So very important to promote that. Let's switch gears here and talk a little bit about United States rural development. Like I said at the top of the program, Ted Buelow was here in the office and talked about what his program do. I think let's hear a little bit about that conversation with Ted.
Yeah. We've got over 80 programs, which that's the overwhelming part. On average, we probably have about $40 billion in loan guarantees, direct loans, and grants that we provide to communities and nonprofits and rural businesses every year across 3 different agencies. So the 3 agencies are a little easier to keep track of than the 80 some odd programs. We've got our Rural Housing Service, which helps finance rural housing, both for single-family home ownership as well as rural rental properties. So keeping safe, affordable rental properties available in rural America is one part of the things that we do there. And in the Rural Housing Service, we also have a community facilities line of work where we help finance anything from hospitals to tribal admin buildings to schools, anything that really helps the essential function of a rural area. So Rural Housing Service does about 1/3 of what we do. Rural Utility Service is a 2/3 where we help finance electric, water, and broadband and telecom infrastructure. And then we have our Rural Business and Cooperative Service where we do more job creation and business creation programs through loan guarantees and grants.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, and I was and I I'm sure we'll try to run some more of that conversation in future episodes. But what's amazing to me about rural development, all the things they touch, housing, workforce, technology, utilities. It was just like, it's amazing to me how much that office, and that's a subset of USDA.
Yeah.
It's USDA, and then you have USDA rural development, but how that can really impact our rural communities. And I'm from a rural community, Cherokee, North Carolina. We are a very small town in western North Carolina, home of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. And I mean, it was, rural development was very prevalent throughout my career when I worked for the tribe. So very important to have them as a partner, and it's great to hear some of the things that they had to offer.
Well, so, you think about it, housing, utilities, and the other infrastructure that they assist with
Broadband.
in tribal communities.
Yeah.
When you think about a house and you think about a building that you're going to build, the early education center, the new hospital, I mean, it's stick and brick. And so where does that stick and brick come from? The lumber. We need the lumber. We need the the mortar to build the brick. So all of those things, you don't think about it when you're building and sustaining communities with economic development through job creation and then affordable housing and, of course, food sovereignty. So, I mean, that's our whole life. It's like why we do what we do every day, right? And so they are right at the helm to help the communities with all these programs and as our nonprofit here to help get that word out. And that's the majority of what we can do is provide those resources and have the technical assistance providers and the experts, if it's above our head, to work with the small business to create their small business, if it's something that's related to these things, of course, which everything is interrelated in some way, shape, or form. And then, of course, the advocacy to find out the rules and regulations and the Code of Federal Regulations and what does it mean and how does it apply to me. And then to continue with, rural America is like the backbone of the United States, right? That's what we've come to know. But yet we have been here for millennial and we've been doing it. And now they're starting to see and understand that the tribes have done this all along. And so now we're back, it's in our generation.
I like what you're talking about, how, when you're building a building, all the materials, are coming from natural resources and there's so much innovation. And when we think of agriculture, a lot of times we think of growing a plant, corn,
Right.
but it's also timber, is another agriculture industry. There's all types of products of innovative building material. And I know you've been to some projects here in Arizona that said tribes are doing some really cool cutting edge things.
Green build technology, solar, using the natural light to create energy, especially for rural development, wind, to create, the water, to pump the water through, water the crops. If they don't have the bunker crops right in the organic form, then, of course, you have to water your crops in order to harvest, to then create all of those cool things that build the stick and brick, that create the building, create the house, create the utility lines, the underground utility, the solar, the wind, the everything, it's all related. And so, that's incredible, I think. And the Forest Service, it's not just about Smokey the Bear and preserving our forest, but there are jobs even there too that USDA touches because it's keeping the forest healthy, of course, with the overgrowth, and that has to be cleaned up in the ways that they do it in a sustainable way. There are crews that have to do that, and sometimes it's seasonal work due to, the high mountain altitudes and everything. Then there's recreation, quite honestly. I mean, there is a lot of recreational things related to how we live, work, and play, right?
Yeah.
And so you can go fishing in the lakes and streams, but what does that mean? Is it catch and release programs and things of that nature? And so then it just kind of brings the whole idea of we want to create these knowledge base, first of all, for technical assistance, but also for people to come and visit our communities because our communities offer a lot of holistic education. We have a lot to offer as far as who we are as a people because every community doesn't look alike. And then for the tourism growth of, coming to the community, learning about their culture, learning about what they did and what their way of life was, because that's what it all boils down to. And then respecting that in a way that you honor them by coming to visit them and learning about them. Because when you can build the unity of your neighbor, then everybody benefits, and then it can just be a snowball effect from there.
And it is true economic development. What you just described as you were talking, I was thinking, all of those business opportunities that not only our individual citizens have to help develop, around different industries, I was, again, back to my community, Cherokee, North Carolina. We were at the start of the Blue Ridge Parkway, or end, I guess you could say, right at the entrance of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Tourism was a growing up. My family businesses were geared around restaurants and tourism. My grandmother had this craft shop, so that it was so important, that to have that guest experience, but also the cultural experience was so important as well, for guests to come into various communities, and not every community does tourism. But the
They
ones that,
should.
they could, they have
Yeah.
that's what sovereignty is all about, right? You can make your own decision.
Yeah.
If you want to have, develop a tourism program, that there's resources out there, and so that's pretty exciting. I think back to USDA, and I think we're going to finish the USDA discussion, but let's have one final clip from Secretary Vilsack. I think he sums it all up.
I want to thank you for the work that you do in promoting economic development. I want to commit to you a strong and compelling partnership with USDA. We are listening. We know that there continue to be challenges and barriers, and we want to remove those barriers and meet those challenges. We know how important it is for young people in particular to have a sense of hope and opportunity and optimism in Indian country. We know how significant it is, not just to Indian country, but to the entire United States. The fact is that there are values in your reservations, values in your communities, values in your tribal nations that are important not just to your tribes, but also to this country. You understand sustainability. You understand connection with nature. You understand the necessity of giving back. You understand the importance of service. You understand the significance of volunteering time and effort. You understand the commitment to something larger and bigger than yourselves. All of those values are important and necessary to keep alive and to expand in this great country of ours. So I'm asking for your partnership, asking for your hand in working together so that we can promote Indian economic development, so that we can say to your young people in particular, there's opportunity in Indian country. There's opportunity to own a business. There's opportunity to be a farmer. There's Indian country. Thank you all very much.
We talked about Sean Sherman, one of our great clients and friends and partners. A second one is Ben Jacobs at Takabe. Now, Ben Jacobs was awarded in 2017, 2018. He was Native Business Owner of the Year with
Nice.
Takabe. Since that relationship, we have traveled up to his various restaurants. He has several in the Denver metro area. He's catered a lot. Was that your bones?
It was
Oh. Is that your bones? Like,
not
Yeah.
quite there yet.
Okay.
Almost.
That's awesome.
But we had a Native Edge Institute in Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
And our friend Rick Waters over at the Indian Center
Yep.
in Denver
Mm-hmm.
invited us to a reception the night before our Native Edge Institute training.
Yeah.
And he had Takabe come and cater. And so we were able to partake in his food, and it was delicious.
Yes.
And I know he had mentioned that he has other restaurants he was growing and more job creation. And so that was really exciting
Yeah.
that we were able to connect everybody at that time at that Native Edge Institute.
And one cool thing, that Takabe has done, they have different business structures where they have an online market now where you can buy native products.
Cool.
They have various beyond catering. They're developing these whole new food systems. So they're doing some amazing work, and We have very similar to a TED Talk. We have what we call a Res Talk, and Ben Jacobs did this really great Res Talk. So let's hear a little bit from Ben.
I want you to get an understanding of what we try and do as a philosophy. Because we do a restaurant, we do food, but there's so much more incorporated into what you present. The National Restaurant Association says that there's over 1 million restaurants in the United States. We can probably count the amount of native-based, native-owned restaurants on 2 hands. Is how do we stay culturally driven? How do we stay culturally aware, culturally appropriate, culturally sensitive? But at the same time, we have to stay business driven. It's a point that we can really start to grow and establish the voice of what we want our cuisine to be, and we can do it communally together.
You know, I think that's always an amazing analogy, amazing and a sad analogy, really. But you can, you know, these are the one hand is the amount of native restaurants we have. Now it may be 2 hands. But, you know, I think he really summarizes it really well about empowering. You know, he's like, we have control over this. And it really, you know, you and I talk a lot about sovereignty and the importance of sovereignty. And I think he, as an individual business owner, he's really saying this is how we can capture this power. And I think it's a beautiful statement.
I like it. I mean, I really think everybody has a niche that they are good at, and just finding that in themselves and finding the element that can sustain them for their whole human experience, right? Mind, body, spirit. I mean, it's everything that we do. And so I think touching on everything that we've touched on today, it's in line with everything that we stand for at the National Center.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us today for the Native Edge podcast. Check us out online at www.ncaied.org. Please follow us on every social media platform there is.
We're out there.
We're everywhere.
YouTube, Instagram,
TikTok,
Facebook, TikTok.
There's so many options to follow us. Follow us, support us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, meaning that we raise every dime to make sure that we are able to do the services throughout Indian country that we can do. So please support the National Center in any way you can. That could be by donation. That could be volunteering at some of our events. That could be attending one of our events. And that could also be attending the Reservation Economic Summit, which will occur in March of 2025. And a lot of the speakers that you heard today will probably be at Res 2025. Thank you so much, my friend Yvette.
Thank you. Or at a Native Edge Institute. And our Native Edge Institutes are also available via webinar. So if you can't attend in person, we're trying to get to all the cities and all the communities. But if you can't attend, you can always attend online virtually.
And if you would like one of Yvette or myself or another team member as a speaker at your event, you can go to our website and there is a speaker portal. Just request a speaker by our name. I think our pictures are on the website. You can just request a speaker, and if we're available, we might be able to come out to see you and talk with you about things that we talk about at the podcast, about things we talk about at Res, on how we together can continue this expansion of economic development in our Native American communities.
And learn more about your community and how we can help.
And support you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Yvette. See you next time on the
Bye.
Native Edge Podcast.